Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. When I entered the room, my gaze automatically fixed on Nagar. She was sitting in front of me as a bride, a simple bride who had a red dupatta draped over her kameez shalwar. Her hands and feet were trembling. With her eyes lowered, she looked extremely worried. The moment my eyes fell on her face, I seemed to forget everything. Slowly, I took steps towards her. Gently holding her chin, I lifted her face, and 2 tears escaped her eyes and fell onto my hands. I immediately became worried. "Nagar, why are you crying? Everything will be all right, trust me." Hearing my words, she suddenly burst into tears, saying, "Now I don't even trust myself." I gently drew her close and held her to my chest, and then placed my lips on her burning forehead. At that moment, I realized she was burning with fever. Her hands and feet were extremely hot. I gently explained to her, "Nagar, you'll get sick like this. It's just a matter of one night. Tomorrow, Zain will be yours again, and then everything will be all right. Just get through tonight as if it were a terrible dream." That 16-year-old girl seemed so innocent and lovely to me, and the tears falling from her eyes were hurting me. I didn't want her to come close to me forcefully. I wanted to melt her slowly with the warmth of my love. Hearing my words, she looked up at me and said, "Will everything really be all right after tonight?" I immediately nodded in affirmation and said, "Everything will really be all right, don't worry. Zain is waiting for you. Just forget everything tonight and be mine, so that the purpose for which Zain had our nikah performed can be fulfilled." And then I gently placed my lips on her forehead again, drawing her closer to me. She suddenly startled and looked at my face as if my touch was unpleasant to her. I could clearly see a wave of displeasure in her eyes, but ignoring that displeasure, I removed the dupatta from her head and placed it aside. Then I slowly touched the zipper at the back of her shirt. She squirmed and began to shrink away, and her action involuntarily made me feel affection for her. My eyes were repeatedly drawn to her being. The girl with large, doe-like eyes and a milky complexion had stolen the peace of my heart with her soft lips. She was repeatedly biting her lips with her teeth, her fingers intertwined, looking extremely worried. I gently touched her lips with my fingers. "What are you doing, Nagar? Your lips will get cut." My tone was languid. She immediately stopped biting her lips, and then I slowly captured her lips with my own. Surprised by my boldness, she recoiled backward, and I quickly tightened my grip around her waist, pulling her towards me. With my other hand, I held her head, bringing her face close to mine. I released a few slow breaths on her face. I wanted to compel her to forget her past tonight. I desired that the union between us be without any compulsion, that she willingly fall into my lap with her love, and that I completely embrace her being. For a while she squirmed and remained uneasy in my arms, but then slowly with my gentleness, I completely took control of her being and began to shower her with my love. Gradually, she too started to lose control. Several times she herself reciprocated my affection. She held my being with her own hands, returning love for love. Her warm breaths were completely overwhelming me. I was also a 22-year-old young man brimming with masculinity. How could I not drown in the intoxication of her love? Perhaps in those moments of the dark night, she mistook me for Zain and began to shower her love upon me. Sometimes she would scratch my back with her nails, and sometimes she would place her lips on my chest. There was so much warmth in her love that my entire being began to glow. A beautiful girl like Nagar had spontaneously entered my life. It was like a dream for me. Soon I had completely undressed her. In that cold night, under the blanket, our 2 bodies became one soul, and she completely merged into me. This was perhaps my good fortune. Otherwise, a homely woman wouldn't even glance at a man as unattractive as me. And there was Nagar, a beautiful young bud of 16. And all of this had happened solely because of one mistake of Zain's. One mistake of Zain's had bestowed upon me the greatest joy of my life. Nagar's moans were echoing throughout the room, and I, overwhelmed by emotions, continued to dominate her. After a brief struggle, Nagar completely calmed down and surrendered herself to me. And I fully fulfilled my right, not wasting a single moment. My masculinity had completely won over Nagar. In the late hours of the night, she had completely forgotten Zain and had become solely mine. And this was my greatest victory. Zayn was my closest friend. We had always been together, two friends who had grown up playing together, whom everyone called two bodies, one soul. We both belonged to wealthy families. Neither I nor Zayn lacked anything. However, there was one difference between us, and that was our appearance. Zayn was an extremely handsome and beautiful young man, while I was a plain-looking boy with a wheatish complexion who seemed ugly in front of Zayn. And this was the reason why no girl had ever paid attention to me. Even the girls in our class would automatically fall for Zayn. Wherever we went, the eyes of the onlookers would be fixed on Zayn, and I would be plagued by the inferiority complex that no loving girl would ever come into my life. No girl who would overlook my ugliness, appreciate my love, and become completely mine. Sometimes looking at Zayn would make me feel this even more. And then this feeling intensified when Nigar entered Zayn's life. Actually, Nigar was not Zayn's, but my first choice. The moment I first saw her, I lost my heart. But once again, my ugliness stood in the way, and Zayn, with his beauty, had won. Nigar's love had fallen into his lap, and I was left with nothing but to suppress my feelings. She was a sister of one of our friends who belonged to a poor family. We both used to visit his house to see him, and it was there that Nigar caught both of our eyes. Extremely simple and beautiful. That girl looked like a wax doll. I lost my heart to that 16-year-old girl at first sight. Looking at Nigar, I had become certain that this girl was worthy of becoming my life partner. At that time, I was only 22 years old, and I felt as if Nigar was made for me. That wax doll was very lovely, but as always, Zayn had won the game because Nigar's eyes had chosen Zayn instead of me. When we both went to Nigar's house for the first time, and she opened the door, she was completely lost in looking at Zayn, so much so that Zayn had to snap his fingers in front of her to bring her back to her senses. While Zayn was there, Nigar didn't even glance at me, whereas I just kept looking at her. Then we went and sat in their drawing room. Zayn gently said to me, "What a strange girl." She froze like a statue at the door. "Looks like she's fallen for me too." Zayn's words were very unpleasant to me because I had already lost my heart to her at first sight, and I didn't want Zayn to set his eyes on her. That's why I said softly, "She looks innocent and simple. Besides, she's our friend's sister. Be careful not to even think about flirting." Because I knew Zayn had a habit of flirting. He said softly, "No, I know she's a friend's sister, so don't worry. Anyway, there's no shortage of beauties for flirting." Zayn winked, and I was left smiling. Indeed, because of our wealth, there was a crowd of girls around us. Whichever girls Zayn laid his eyes on would become crazy for him. So why would he be short of girls? Anyway, at that time, we had come to help our friend. He didn't have some books, and we had come to buy those books and give them to him. Our friend's name was Ashfaq. He took the books and was very grateful. As we were leaving his house, I involuntarily turned back and saw Nigar peeking from behind the kitchen door. That girl was secretly watching both of us. I couldn't understand if her eyes were on me or Zayn, but my heart testified that she must have been looking at Zayn. Why would anyone look at me? And as soon as this thought came, my heart sank badly. I started thinking about Nigar completely. So much so that the entire way back, only Nigar's beauty kept waving in the curtains of my imagination. Then just 2 days later, we had to go to our friend's house again, and that's when Nigar herself started talking to Zayn. She was a very innocent and lovely girl who was asking Zayn about himself. Zayn was surprised at first, and then he not only told Nigar about himself, but also, under some pretext, slipped his number to Nigar, saying that if she had any problems with her studies, she could contact him. "Among the three of us, I am the smartest in studies," Zayn had lied outright, and I had suppressed my laughter because, among the three of us, I was the most intelligent and capable in studies. On the way back, I even scolded Zayn, saying that he shouldn't have given his number to Nigar like that. If Ashfaq found out, he would be upset. Hearing my words, Zayn laughed loudly and said, "Who will tell him, you or Nigar?" He looked at me questioningly, and I fell silent. And then Zayn started tutoring Nigar. Whenever Nigar had any problem, she would text Zayn. Zayn would forward that message to me. I would solve her problem, and then Zayn himself would become the hero and start teaching Nigar. Many times I tried to stop Zayn, but he didn't listen. He had started flirting with Nigar. He would talk to her lovingly, and Nigar would also respond to those talks with love. Sometimes Zayn would even say to me, "Look how foolish she has become. She's young but very beautiful. I won't let her go from my hand so easily. Slowly, 6 months passed in this manner, and in these 6 months, not only had Niagar fallen in love with Zain, but Zain had also become somewhat serious about her. I wanted to stop Zain because I knew that he couldn't maintain any relationship for long. He had had affairs with many girls before and then left them. Moreover, I was also aware of Zain's mother's mentality, that she would never accept a poor girl like Nigar as her daughter-in-law. That's why I didn't want him to hurt Nigar, because she was Ashfaq's sister and truly very innocent. But Zain said, "This time I have truly fallen in love. So don't worry about Mama, I will convince her." Hearing Zain's words, my heart ached because Nigar Bamar had become very special to me. My heart would automatically beat for her, but whenever I looked at myself in the mirror, all my courage would fail. How could a girl like Nigar ever accept me? She wouldn't even look at me properly, so I remained silent. Then 2 months later, we found out that Nigar's family was arranging her marriage, and her nikah would take place in a month because a cousin of Nigar's was coming from abroad, and he would get married and go back, and then make arrangements to call Nigar to him. This news not only shocked Zain, but also made Nigar distraught with crying. She kept calling Zain and threatening suicide. Zain was also very worried, and then Zain took a step that I couldn't even imagine. One night around 4 o'clock, my gatekeeper called me and said that Zain Sahib was standing outside and asking for me. Hearing this, I was surprised how Zain had come without calling me, and then when I went outside, I was stunned to see Nigar sitting in Zain's car. And the final blow came when Zain told me that he had run away with Nigar from her house and that they were going to get married. I said to Zain, "Are you out of your mind? We are only 22 years old, still studying. Your family will never accept Nigar. At least talk to your mother, Iwasim. And have you thought about Ashfaq and his family? What kind of stain will this action of yours put on their honor? What were you both thinking when you made this decision?" I was furious because I knew Zain's family. We belonged to high society, while Nigar's family wasn't even middle class. They were lower middle class. Zain said, "I have made my decision. Will you support us or not?" I said, "I'm here. Tell me what to do." I couldn't understand what I should do at this hour because I knew Zain's nature. Despite all my yelling and explaining, he would do what he wanted. I had no other option but to support him. He said, "Come with us. We'll spend the rest of the night on the streets, and then in the morning, we'll have a court marriage. After that, we'll tell my family first, and then Nigar's." I tried to reason with both of them again, but neither of them agreed. Reluctantly, I had to go along with them. In the morning, as soon as the court opened, they both had a court marriage first, and then Nigar said, "Let's go to my house first. My mother will be worried." I looked at that girl with regret. The thought that her family would be worried had occurred to her so late. My heart wanted to mourn her foolishness. She hadn't thought even once before making such a big decision about what could happen to her in the life ahead. I was worried just thinking about what Zain's mother would do to her and whether Nigar's family would agree to this relationship. I was sure that all of this was impossible, but they both looked completely satisfied. At Nigar's insistence, we went to her house first to tell her family about the nikah, but Ashfaq beat both of us friends severely, and Nigar's parents pushed her out of the house, saying that they had nothing to do with Nigar anymore. Nigar, who was an innocent and simple girl, was thinking that her crying would make her parents agree. Now she had become completely silent. Somehow Zain consoled her. Ashfaq also ended his friendship with both of us, saying that we were very vile for setting our eyes on his sister. It wasn't even my fault, but because of Zain, I also got beaten by Ashfaq. And then, when Zain reached his house with Nigar, Zain's family also refused to accept Nigar. Zain's mother clearly said that if he wanted to stay with this girl, he should leave their house. Zain sat at his mother's feet and cried a lot, so Zain's mother gave Nigar a place in the servant quarters, saying that after some time she would get her divorced and get rid of her. And she also forbade Zain and Nigar from meeting. Zain consoled Nigar by saying that he would convince his mother in a few days. But a month passed, and Zain's mother didn't agree in any way. In fact, she had even deprived them of meeting. Nigar was kept in a closed room where no one was allowed to go. There was a lock outside that room. Even Zain couldn't meet Nigar even if he wanted to. The servants would go and give Nigar 2 meals a day, and that's how Nigar was spending her days. Her condition had become very bad. Then one day when Zain created a big commotion, Zain's mother called Nigar into her bungalow and in front of both of them, held a knife to her throat and said, "Now tell me, do you love your mother or this girl?" Poor Zain was badly trapped. He tried to reason with his mother, but she moved the knife even closer to her neck and said, "If you love me, divorce this girl right now or I will kill myself." Hearing this, Zain was forced to divorce Nigar then and there. Zain's mother immediately pushed Nigar out of the house, and her wish was fulfilled, while Nigar was devastated. The boy for whose love she had left her home had divorced her and humiliated her. Crying, Nigar came out of Zain's house. Zain tried to stop Nigar, but no relationship was left between them. Helplessly, Zain called me and asked me to keep Nigar with me, saying that he would somehow convince his mother. Hearing this, Nigar became angry and said, "How can I marry you again? You have divorced me. I am no longer your wife. Tell me, where will I go?" 16-year-old Nigar, who had foolishly left her home in the heat of emotion, now had no support. My parents lived abroad, so Zain forcibly got Nigar shelter in my house. Day and night, I was seeing the beautiful Nigar in front of my eyes. She was helpless and homeless, and my heart was uncontrollable. Then, with great difficulty, Zain convinced his parents for Nigar. He had told his mother that if he didn't get Nigar, he would die. He had even faked a suicide attempt, and his mother had agreed. But now he had divorced Nigar, so what could happen? That's why Zain had pleaded with me to marry his wife, and then in this way, he would include Nigar in his life again. I was already drowning in Nigar's love. Even for one night, I was going to have her. Thinking this, I immediately agreed. Nigar also had no other way, so she also agreed, and Nigar and I got married. And then, on the wedding night, getting close to her, I completely drowned in the intoxication of her love. She was so beautiful and gorgeous that I couldn't get out of her intoxication. All night, I surrendered myself in her arms, and when she came out after taking a bath in the morning, seeing her wet hair, my heart became uncontrollable again. One night had passed, and now, according to the promise, I had to divorce her. But letting Nigar go was beyond my power. I immediately got out of bed and embraced Nigar, who was standing in front of the mirror in my arms. She looked at me startled. I lifted her in my arms and laid her down on the bed. Her eyes widened with surprise. "What are you doing, Shahroz? The purpose of our marriage has been fulfilled." She tried to push me away. "Does marriage even have a purpose, Nigar? Marriage in itself is a relationship. What can I do? Even if I try, I can't take my eyes off your beauty." Saying this, I placed my lips on her neck, and she closed her eyes. "What do you want to say?" She spoke softly. "My heart doesn't agree, Nigar, to let you go like this. You have become mine. At least let me complete my love. For so long, I have yearned for you. Now I want to completely quench that yearning. You know I have loved you at first sight." I gently confessed my love to Nigar, and she was looking at me with wide eyes. I touched the strings on her neck and gently slid her shirt off her shoulder, showering her with my love. She took a deep breath. The bone in her neck became prominent, and my heart wandered even more. After that, I couldn't control myself and resorted to doing as I pleased. I reached out and once again turned off all the lights in the room. Nigar's soft moans echoed in the room. After some hesitation, she lost to me again, and I felt myself completely lost in her sighs. She was my wife, completely intoxicated by my love. I spent hours like that, showering my love on Nigar. Around 2 in the afternoon, my mobile phone started ringing incessantly. When I separated myself from Nigar's being, she herself wrapped her arms around me as if she didn't want to be apart from me. I was captivated by this gesture of hers and, sighing without looking at the phone, moved close to her again. She was also on the threshold of youth. Emotions were blossoming within her too. That's why she had accepted my love. The evening passed like this, and then when I moved away from her, my love had been completed. I looked at her with a smile. A smile also appeared on her face. I sat right next to her and started expressing my love for her, telling her how long I had harbored feelings for her, and she was just listening to me in amazement. After a while, the watchman came and said that Zain Sahib had been waiting for me for a long time. He was standing outside and hadn't come in, and he was calling for me. Hearing this, I went outside, and Zain was standing there waiting for me. Angrily, he said, "I've been calling you for so long. Divorce Nigar and hand her over to me. I will marry her in a day or two." Without saying anything, I took Zane's hand and led him to my bedroom. The bedsheet was lying on the floor, and Nigar was sitting there disheveled. As soon as she saw both of us, she stood up. "Tell me, Nigar, do you want a divorce from me?" I asked Nigar in front of Zane. She suddenly got flustered and looked at me and then at Zane. That innocent 16-year-old girl, the way she had come close to me, I had become sure that she wouldn't want to be separated from me. And then Nigar shook her head in negation, saying, "Zane, I don't want to marry you again. I want to spend my life with Shahroz. You have already divorced me once at your mother's behest. I can't trust you again." Hearing this, Zane was completely stunned. He gave me a hard push and said, "You did all this. You must have brainwashed her." I shook my head in denial and said, "No, she has accepted my love. We are complete with each other, and there is no room for a third person between us." Zane left the house cursing me, and I stepped forward and embraced Nigar. She burst into tears. I assured her that I would be with her in every journey of life. I called my parents and told them about my marriage. My parents loved me immensely, so they accepted Nigar. I also called Ashfaq and told him everything from beginning to end. He forgave me because it wasn't my fault. And then, after some time, Nigar's family also accepted us. Today, Nigar and I are living a beautiful married life. The game of halala that Zane wanted to play backfired on him. My true love had blossomed. Nigar Harstar had accepted my love. Nigar and I will always be together until our last breath. This is my wish, and this is my prayer.